Hello there. What do you actually need for a good horror movie? Serial killers? Severed body parts? Splatter effects? Well, 60 years ago, Alfred Hitchcock showed that you actually don't need any of that. You only need a few birds.
Yeah, The Birds is perhaps, maybe besides Psycho, one of the most important Hitchcock horror movies ever. It tells the story of the millionaire's daughter, Melanie Daniels, who wants to surprise her new crush, Mitch Brenner, and travels to the tranquil and rather spooky village of Bodega Bay, but immediately is attacked by a seagull. Yeah, and the horror begins.
This legendary horror movie has been filmed in the year 1963 in California in the USA. And today it's time to show you the famous filming locations of this famous movie and to show you how they have changed within the past 60 years. Time for a new movie location tour. The first place I want to show you today is also the first place that you can see in the movie The Birds. It's the pet store that you can see right behind me that Melanie Daniels visits at the beginning of the movie. It's in San Francisco, to be precise, at Union Square. And in reality, it's a fashion store. Let's check it out.
And here we are at Union Square, like Melanie Daniels is in the movie The Birds. And once again, I have to say, what a beautiful and also interesting town San Francisco is. If you have watched my latest shooting location tour of Full House, I already showed you a lot of San Francisco. And the funny thing is, most of the time, this town looks a little bit like a village. That's because of all those small historic Victorian houses you see here in every street. But right here at Union Square, San Francisco finally looks like a huge city with everything that you would expect from a huge city, like skyscrapers and monuments and stuff like that. You will find everything here on Union Square, and there are even more skyscrapers today than in the past. If we compare those scenes in detail, we can see there is a huge tower in the middle of the picture that hasn't been here 60 years ago. If I did my research right, this should be the tower of the Hilton Hotel. And this hotel, or this building, has been finished in the year 1970, which means 7 years after the movie The Birds has been released. So obviously, this building hasn't been here in the past. There are also a few more buildings you can see here in reality that you don't see in the movie. For example, the huge building right next to the Hilton Tower on the right side. And there's also some kind of a futuristic building in the background that you also do not see in the movie scene. What's still here are those buildings on the right side that you can see here. Also including those billboards on top of those buildings. You see that? In the past, there was some kind of an advertisement for, what is that? Air France. Air France for a journey to Paris.
Today there is advertisement for things
that didn't even exist 60 years ago. For example, the airports. What's also still here are those lanterns on the right that you can also see in the movie. And also this monument is still here like 60 years ago. And if we take a look at the left of the picture, there is something different because we can see here in reality there is a huge building which says Saks Fifth Avenue. This is a luxury department store chain. And in the movie we can see there is some kind of a building on the left side, but it looks a bit different than what we see here in this scene. Let's follow Melanie Daniels over the street and maybe we will find out what happened to that building. And here she is, Melanie Daniels, walking across the road, and indeed we can see in the background there is a different building. And I also found out what this building actually is. This is the so-called Fitzhugh building, which was torn down in the 1980s because Saks Fifth Avenue, the luxury department store chain, bought this property. They wanted to build a shop there, but that unfortunately didn't work with the Fitzhugh building, so they demolished it in the 1980s, which many residents in San Francisco didn't really like because it actually was a quite historical building built in the 1920s in a Renaissance style. So there were a lot of protests at that time because of the demolition of this famous building.
However, today the Saks Fifth Avenue building is historic itself.
Because it's also standing here for more than 40 years now. Melanie Daniels has crossed the street and now she's turning onto the sidewalk, and what we can see here in this scene is the building in the background, which is the West Inn Hotel at Union Square. And the funny thing about this building is, well, it looks much better today than it used to 60 years ago. Look at the windows, they don't look that inviting. Right? Well, but that's just my personal opinion. The funny thing about this hotel is Alfred Hitchcock himself stayed at this hotel while they shot the movie The Birds. And he also stayed in this hotel while they shot this scene. And that's because they filmed the scene secretly from the inside of a furniture van, not to attract too much attention. So maybe, that's my guess at least, Alfred Hitchcock was looking out of some window of the West Inn Hotel while they shot the scene. But yeah, you can't really see him. What we can see here today in reality is an advertising pillar. In the past, there used to be a newspaper stand on the left side and some garbage cans on the right side. I'm not really sure if this newspaper stand is a real existing newspaper stand or if this was just a set, because in the next scene something interesting is happening. Melanie Daniels walks right behind this newspaper stand, and then something happens that we as professional YouTubers would call a transition, so a cut that you don't really notice. Melanie Daniels walks behind the newspaper stand, the camera turns to the left, and then Melanie Daniels comes out right in front of this pet shop. The pet shop that in reality doesn't exist. And that's not because they demolished the building at this place. No, this building has never been here. All the scenes have been shot in a studio. This, what you can see here, is a set, and also the inside scenes you can see in the movie have been shot in a studio, so everything you see here in this scene is not real. In reality, there is a fashion store here. One last fun fact about the scene: if you look very closely in the movie, you will see a cameo appearance by Alfred Hitchcock himself, because he's coming out of the door in this scene, but yeah, maybe you won't even notice. And before we leave this interesting place, we do exactly what also Melanie Daniels does in the movie. She looks back on Union Square. She sees all the birds getting ready for their attack. And here we can also see those two important things that still exist today and that also have been here in the movie. We can see a monument on the left side, which is the Dewey Monument. It has been built in 1903 and is dedicated to Admiral George Dewey for his victory in the Battle of Manila Bay during the Spanish-American War. And we can also see those famous lanterns on the right side. Unfortunately, there is no real story about those lanterns. They are just here and they are very historic. They have been here 60 years ago and they are still here 60 years later. But I would say that's it from this place. Now, let's move on.
So, that's it from San Francisco, and now let's do exactly the same what Melanie Daniels does in the movie The Birds. Let's go from San Francisco to Bodega Bay. And if you thought, I'm pretty sure Bodega Bay, that's not a real town, that's a fictional town like it always is in horror movies. Well, you're wrong. Bodega Bay is a real town, and also what they tell you in the movie is absolutely correct. It takes 1.5 hours from San Francisco if you take the highway, or 2 hours if you take a coast road. I don't have that much time, and I'm also a bit smarter than Melanie Daniels, hopefully. So we take the highway. Yeah, let's see how Bodega Bay looks like. Let's go to Bodega Bay and let's also see if we will make it out alive. So, it's quite windy up here, but this is our first shooting location right at Bodega Bay. This is the road that leads to Bodega Bay, and that is also the road that Melanie Daniels is driving with her Aston Martin in the movie The Birds. However, she's not really driving, as you can see in the movie. She's sitting in front of a blue screen or green screen or whatever that is. But this should be the road. The only thing that's different is in the movie you can see there is a marking in the middle of the road that you can't see in reality. Maybe it's not here anymore, I don't know. Yeah, but what you can see is the beautiful nature that you can also see in the movie. And I would say let's drive a little further, let's go to Bodega Bay, and maybe we will also find 1 or 2 scenes that have been filmed on this road, even though it's quite difficult because, yeah, all you see is nature. Yeah, but let's try it.
Yeah, let me show you a few scenes you can see in the movie. This is Melanie Daniels in her car. In this scene, you actually can't see the road markings in the middle of the road. But in this scene, you can see them, and you can also see those beautiful green mountains. In this scene, we have a view on the road itself. And also in this scene, we can see the coast road. And, well, me as a European, the first thing that comes to my mind when I see those pictures is it looks a bit Irish. It looks a bit like this has been filmed in Ireland. It could also be the coast road of Galway or something like that. Anyway, in reality, it doesn't really look like that because if you have seen my latest videos, you might already know it's quite hot and dry right now in California. So it's also not that green like it is in the movie. It's actually quite the opposite. And what I also didn't find are those exact scenes you can see in the movie, and also this view of the road itself. I really don't know where this has been filmed, so I'm not even 100% sure if this is the exact place where they have filmed those scenes. The internet says it's this road, Bay Hill Road, but yeah, I don't really know. Anyway, it was quite fun to drive this road through the mountains like Melanie Daniels did, so the feeling of the movie The Birds was definitely there.
Bei Initiatives Rot rechts abbiegen, dann links abbiegen. Links abbiegen, dann rechts abbiegen.
So, here we are in the famous Bodega Bay, and I've already seen a few seagulls. Maybe I should go back home, I don't know. Whatever. Every shooting location tour, as you might know, comes with a little disappointment. This time it's a huge disappointment because the Bodega Bay, you know, from the movie doesn't really exist like that in reality. You can see a lot of scenes in the movie that are actually a set, fake houses that have been built to film the movie. For example, right at the beginning when Melanie Daniels comes into town with her car, then she goes into a shop and asks for the address of Mitch. Also the scene at the end of the movie when the gas station explodes and stuff like that, that's all a set. That are fake houses. They don't really exist here in Bodega Bay, which is a bit sad because obviously we can't visit them today. What does exist, however, is the pier that is shown in the movie, and also the restaurant, the Tides, that is shown in the movie a lot of times. Unfortunately, this building burned down many years ago, so they built a completely new restaurant over here with the same name, but it's obviously a different building, and obviously many things have changed in this area. However, I would say let's walk around here a little bit and let's see if we can find some scenes anyway. Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do it.
Yeah, I would say let's start with this scene, because here you can see Bodega Bay and the harbor of Bodega Bay in all its glory. And this is how it looks like today. I'm pretty sure this scene has been filmed more or less from this place, because Bodega Bay has a little hill in its city center, and there is also a huge road that goes right through the village. That's exactly the road we took when we came here with the car. And you can see this road, and you can also see the hill here in the movie scene, and you can also see that here in reality. Those houses on the left side and on the right side are sets, as far as I know. They haven't really been here in Bodega Bay, they just built them for the movie. But I'm also not 100% sure if they really built them here in Bodega Bay, or if they have built them in a studio and they just put the harbor of Bodega Bay in the background. That's one of all those little secrets of the movie The Birds. You don't really know, and nobody knows anything about it. There is a story about this gas station that you can see in the movie that explodes at the end of the movie. This has been filmed in a studio, for example. They didn't really let a gas station explode here in Bodega Bay. That has been filmed in a studio. So I'm pretty sure there are a few scenes that have been filmed in a studio, a few scenes that really have been filmed here in Bodega Bay. But what scenes exactly? Well, I can't really tell. What I can tell you is you can still see the new Tides restaurant, which is at a totally different place than it used to be 60 years ago, which makes it even more difficult to tell where the exact locations of this movie are. Obviously, in the past, the Tides restaurant was on the left, as you can see here in the movie. Today, it's standing in the middle of this harbor. So yeah, it's super complicated. But anyway, this is how Bodega Bay looks like today. This is the reverse shot. Once again, we can see this little hill. Melanie Daniels is driving down the hill with her Aston Martin, and we can see a lot of Bodega Bay in the background, which isn't here anymore in reality, because this has never been here in reality. All of those houses you see here are sets. Also, this little post office Melanie Daniels walked in to ask for directions was a set. It was never here in Bodega Bay. The only thing where I'm not 100% sure is the gas station. As I told you, the explosion was filmed in a studio, but in reality, if you take a look at the right side, in reality, right behind the bushes, there really is a gas station here in Bodega Bay. So I don't really know if this maybe was a real gas station in the past. Also the building right beside it, tires, batteries and stuff like that. I really don't know. Maybe this will always remain a secret. Here we can see Melanie Daniels. She's asking for a boat in the harbor, and also this boat dock unfortunately isn't here anymore today, because also this boat dock burned down together with the Tides restaurant in the late 1960s, so it's gone. But I think this scene has been filmed more or less from this direction, because you can see the village Bodega Bay, the rest of the village, in the background. You see that, and you can also see that here from this direction. So I think this more or less should be the position they have filmed this scene. And here we can see Miss Daniels taking the boat to Mitch's house, and that I think has been filmed from over here, because we can see all those beautiful mountains and hills in the background that you can also see here in reality. Well, and before we leave this harbor, this used to be the Tides restaurant in the 1960s when they have filmed the movie. We can also see the telephone box on the left side where Melanie Daniels hides when the birds attack. Well, this is how the Tides restaurant looks like today. This is the new building. It still has the same flair like in the movie, but it's a totally different building and a totally different place and much bigger, obviously. And well, if you are a huge Alfred Hitchcock fan, in this building you will also find a souvenir shop with a lot of stuff of the movie The Birds that you can buy. So if you're interested in that, you can spend all your money here.
Das Ziel befindet sich auf der linken Seite.
The next filming location on the list is not as disappointing as the harbor, because no sets have been built here, nothing burned down, everything you see here still exists, and I'm talking about the famous schoolhouse.
And here it is, the famous schoolhouse as we know it from the movie Bodega Bay School. In reality, this is not Bodega Bay School, this is the so-called Potter Schoolhouse, which in reality is a private home, so unfortunately you can't visit it from inside, but you can visit it from outside. Outside this fence you have a beautiful view on this building. It really is beautiful, right? Obviously they renovated it within the past 60 years. Look at this beautiful dark green color around the windows. And yeah, in the movie it didn't look like that. It actually looks a bit run down in the movie. And I also read that they obviously rescued this building for the movie because actually the plan was to tear it down. But well, then Alfred Hitchcock came and they rescued this famous school building. What else do we see in this scene? We can see a church on the right side, which actually doesn't really play an important role in this movie. You only can see it in a few scenes. This is the church St. Teresa of Avila, and actually this church is quite famous because there is a quite famous black and white picture by the photographer Ansel Adams from the year 1953. Here's Miss Daniels opening the door of Bodega Bay School, which has this beautiful dark green color. It was not like that in the past. And also the railings look totally different. I'm pretty sure they built completely new ones here. At least it looks like it. In this scene, we can see the schoolhouse in all its glory. Melanie Daniels is coming with her Aston Martin. She's driving down the road. And what we can see here is, obviously, there is a forest right behind the schoolhouse. It has grown within the past 60 years. In the movie scene, we can see a house on the left side of the road, which obviously still exists. There's still a house on the left side of the road. Unfortunately, it's covered with trees, so we can't see it from this direction. But what is not here anymore is this. Is that even a building on the right side? Actually, it looks a bit more like junk. I don't know. That's definitely not here anymore. There is no building and there is also no garbage or whatever that is on the right side of the road. It looks super clean here. In this scene, we can see the children running away from the birds that has been filmed from over here. Once again, we can see the beautiful schoolhouse. Once again, we can see that there is a forest right behind the schoolhouse. And what you can also see here is this fence around those buildings, around the schoolhouse and around the church that hasn't been here in the past. There is a beautiful white fence over here. Here's a side view of the children that are attacked by the birds. That has been filmed from over here. Here we can see the church once again in the background. It's still the same church, but also in this scene we can see the fence is different. There is a beautiful white fence. This is one of those iconic scenes from the movie. All of the birds are sitting on the perches, ready to attack, and that obviously has been filmed from over here. You can see those perches are not here anymore. Instead there is a garden, but this should be the scene because we can see this corner of the building on the right side of the picture, which looks exactly the same. And here's Melanie Daniels once again, this time in close up, and this scene has been filmed from over here with the schoolhouse in the background. Okay, and now let's focus on the school teacher, Annie Hayworth. And now it gets interesting because in the movie, Annie Hayworth is living in a small house right next to the schoolhouse, on the left side of the schoolhouse. And also this house is not really here in reality because this house didn't even exist 6 years ago. Also, this house was just a set they built here, a set that used to be the living house of Annie Hayworth. Today there is no house and there is also a huge forest so that we don't see any of that. The reverse shot, however, was no fake. Here we can see Melanie Daniels standing in front of this house over here. This house still exists even 60 years later, and we can also see that this is exactly the same house if we take a look at those little chimneys on the roof of the house. Here's Melanie Daniels talking to Annie Hayworth right in front of her house, which was just a set. In reality, by the way, there really is a living house right next to the schoolhouse on the left side, but it looks totally different. This is how it looks like here in reality. If you take a look at the terrace and stuff like that, it looks totally different. The only thing that fits quite well is this typical round mailbox you can see here right in front of the house. Also, Annie Hayworth had one of those mailboxes, a beautiful red one, right in front of her house. And this is the last scene from this place. Melanie Daniels is sitting in her car, ready to drive away. That has been filmed from over here. Once again, we can see the house in the background is exactly the same. We can still see the corner of the house in the background. And what we can also see is there are a few more trees today, 60 years later, and they also built a fence here that hasn't been here 60 years ago.
Okay, Annie's house obviously remains a mystery, but there's also another scene shot in this street that doesn't really make sense in reality. If you remember the scene when the kids run away from the birds, they come from the schoolhouse and they run down this street over here. You can see in that scene that there is water at the end of the street, so the kids are running towards the water, but in reality, there isn't any water.
Yeah, and if you don't believe me, here's proof. This is the scene as we know it from the movie. The kids are running towards the water, attacked by the birds, and this is how it looks here. In reality, there is no water, there's just a huge road in the background with a lot of cars, but definitely no water.
So, what's the solution to the riddle? Of course, all of those scenes haven't really been shot in this street. Well, of course, they have been shot in this street, but only from this direction. The reverse shot, however, has been filmed at a totally different street, and that's where we are going now.
Nach 1000 Fuß rechts abbiegen auf Taylor Street. Du hast das Ziel erreicht.
And this is it. This is the road where they filmed this iconic scene from the movie The Birds. The kids are running towards the water, and this is how it looks like in reality. What we can see is the bay in the background is still there. Those hills in the background are also still there. But there is one thing that has changed, and it's the building that you can see in the background, in the movie scene, a blue building. This obviously used to be a restaurant, at least you can see that in some scenes in the movie. There is a sign that says restaurant. On a website I found this obviously was also some kind of a supermarket with 2 floors in the past. I don't know if that's right. However, what I couldn't find out, unfortunately, is why this building actually disappeared. It obviously was torn down, but I don't know why.
Today you will find a parking space at that place and also a little bay store.
What I found out during my research, obviously Bodega Bay still has a problem with fires. It's not just the Tides restaurant that burned down within the past 60 years. Just a few years ago, on exactly this road you can see in the background, another restaurant building burned down. So my first guess was that this could have been this building you can see in the background in the movie scene, but no, it wasn't. It was a different building. What else do we see in this picture? The house on the left side obviously is a new house that hasn't been here 60 years ago. It looks a bit different on the left side if you take a closer look. The house on the right side, however, used to be here 60 years ago. You can still see that if you compare the roof. And also this power pole on the right side is still the same like in the movie The Birds. And if you take a look at the horizon, obviously in the past there used to be a few more boats in this bay. This scene is also quite interesting. Here we can see a very old car in the movie The Birds, and that has been filmed from over here. Today there is a modern SUV, but the area around it still looks quite the same. We still can see those three little houses on the left side. The only thing that has changed a little bit, obviously, on the right side in reality, there is some kind of a new house or something like that, and also a hatch that hasn't been here like that in the past. The children and Miss Daniels are trying to hide in the car. That has been filmed from over here, even though it doesn't look like it. But if you take a very close look at the background, you will see there is this small red wooden house in the background of the movie The Birds that you can still see today. Look at this. Looks a bit like those typical red wooden Swedish houses. Who did actually invent those small wooden houses? Was it the Americans or was it the Swedes? I don't know, maybe that's a topic for a different video. However, this wooden house is still visible here in reality, even though there is another house with a very fancy color right in front of it, and also a fence and a few more houses around it. Once again, here's proof how fake this scene is. Here we can see Melanie Daniels again with the schoolhouse in the background. And if you take a look at the reality, nope, there is no schoolhouse at all. This is just a boring residential area. And this is the last scene I want to show you from this place, and also the last scene I want to show you today. Here's another closer look at the restaurant or supermarket that doesn't exist anymore. This is how it looks like in reality. Once again, we can see the house on the right side still exists, and on the left side the area looks a bit different. Seems like there has been some kind of a cabin or a wooden house or something like that on the left in the past.
Today there are a few more houses than 60 years ago.
In reality, we finally can see a boat in the background in the bay. And wait a minute, you see that on the power pole and on the power lines, the birds. There are birds. Oh my god. Oh my god!
Rechts abbiegen, dann befindet sich das Ziel auf der linken Seite.
So, that was my shooting location tour of The Birds in Bodega Bay. I really hope you liked it. Unfortunately, I couldn't show you all the places you can see in the movie The Birds. There are a few more, for example, Mitch's house, which is a real existing place. Unfortunately, it's private property. There is a huge gate in front of it. I really tried it, and you can't see anything of the house. So yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't show this to you. There's also the house of the neighbors that you can see in the movie. They also get killed by the birds. Also that house is private property, so yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't show you that, but I showed you the most famous places of the movie, so I hope you liked it. If you did, then please leave a thumbs up. You can also hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss any upcoming video. And if you like to support me and my work, then please check out my Patreon. Then you will get exclusive stuff, for example, the addresses of all the shooting locations I showed you today, and new videos before everyone else, so you should definitely check that out. You might hear the noise right in front of my hotel window. There are people in the pool. There's a pool right in front of my hotel window and they are having fun. I really have to say, the people are super nice here. I really like this area. The longer my USA road trip takes, it gets better. It started a bit mediocre in Los Angeles, but since I've been to San Francisco, everything is super nice. The people are super friendly, the landscapes are beautiful, the villages and towns I've been to are super peaceful and friendly. I really liked it. Yeah, maybe I will go to the pool as well now. And what could be the next place I'm gonna visit? Well, I will tell you in the next video, so please subscribe and have a safe journey, and see you next time. Bye bye.